Hey, Jared.
Hey, Josh.
What's the worst part about reverse aging?
Man. I don't know, but I have a feeling this is going to be good.
I don't know if it was going to be that good, but
Okay.
having to go through middle school again.
Yeah. Yeah, not great.
It's like, I feel like it's pretty much the consensus is that most people, middle school is the worst.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And or high school.
yeah.
Depending.
I guess most people, if they had a rough high school, middle school still was the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. a lot of downsides and a lot of upsides to aging in reverse.
Hey, welcome back to Screen Time Film, a podcast where we follow a director's filmography from start to finish. We're currently in the tail end of Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we are going to cover Youth Without Youth. So, Jared, I'm afraid I must remain neutral in all of this.
Yes.
Whatever it is. I must remain neutral.
Yeah. Mine's very similar to that.
This is my co-host, Jared.
I must not think about anything.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah. Youth Without Youth. 2007, rated R, 2 hours and 4 minutes.
Okay.
A love story wrapped in a mystery. Set in World War II Europe, a professor is changed by a cataclysmic event and explores the mysteries of life.
Yeah. Good synopsis.
Mm-hmm. So this was directed and written by Francis Ford Coppola.
Okay.
Cinematographer is Mahai Malamor Jr.,
Yes.
which also did The Master, Jojo Rabbit, and the soon to be covered by us Megalopolis.
Yeah, he this person basically, same with the guy who does the score for this, like this is his pair for his last 4 movies of Coppola, like same cinematographer, same composer.
Yeah. Speaking of music, we have Osvaldo Galijov.
Sure.
Galijov? Yeah. Don't know. Never heard it pronounced.
My favorite part of the podcast is you pronouncing people's names. Like even when we get to the cast. Always a good time.
Glad I can entertain.
Yeah.
Glad I can entertain. So, production costs.
Okay.
What do you think, Jared?
Once again, I did not think about this ahead of time. Maybe one day I will finally.
I ask you this.
I know.
Time.
Maybe one day I will put in my notes ahead of time and think about it. This one's tricky because not a big cast.
Nope.
But I mean, a lot of locations though.
Yeah.
If they actually filmed all in these, areas of the world. We are now in 2007.
Yes.
I don't remember, for context, what I think it was like 40 million for Rainmaker. I think.
Somewhere in that ballpark, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think he could have done this on somewhat of a budget. But let's say 35 million.
5 million.
Okay. Very good then.
To make you appreciate it a little bit more when you know, like, that, the film looked pretty good and the budget was that low.
It did. That's very impressive. I mean, you'll go through the cast, but like I don't know anyone in this besides Tim Roth.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
So speaking it was not nominated for any Academy Awards. So we'll skip over that part.
Surprised maybe a nomination for, well, this is probably a tough year, 2007, I don't know, but I'm surprised not a nomination for cinematography. Because There's some very interesting stuff in this.
Mm-hmm. All right, like you said, Tim Roth is our lead, only person either one of us recognize.
Yeah.
And then we have Alexandra Maria. We have Bruno Gans. We have Andre Hinnick. I don't know. Marcel Lurs. Alexandra Perici. Adrian Pintea. Florin Piersick Jr. And then unlisted Matt Damon.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to mention that in a note because, yeah. Very brief, yeah.
Very brief scene where he plays the reporter.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm going to assume you never saw this film before.
No, I'm going to assume you didn't either.
You're correct in assuming
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Yeah.
So what'd you think?
Okay, I think I'll probably have more notes just for overall thoughts than actual notes. I don't have too many. I was thinking about this one a lot because it's a very unique film anyway. I would say also to me, felt very like an artsy type film.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a little convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, what I was thinking about, the premise kind of reminds me of Jack.
Yep.
But in reverse.
Yep.
And I would say it's hard sometimes through the film to understand like what's going on at certain points.
Yeah.
But I actually find this movie pretty fascinating, just from a plot standpoint. And I could see this film probably when it came out being pretty divisive. But I thought, I was into it, and maybe it could be just also maybe I was just in a mood for just a artsy type of movie. I don't know, but I found it pretty fascinating. I don't want to say it's amazing, but it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I will 100% agree with you. I feel like this film, you have to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah.
I think. I wrote down because I agree with several things you said.
Okay.
But I kind of summed it up as a pretentious mess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Because I think the overall idea that's here is like, so on paper, if someone's like, oh, I'm gonna make a film about this, and for spoilers here, we're just giving overall plot, where a man gets, is trying to go for his life's work, and he has this goal of doing this thing, and he's, getting old, and
Yeah, they say he's 70 when the film starts, right?
yeah, and he still hasn't achieved what he wanted to achieve in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets struck by lightning, and then he's bandaged up, and then as he comes out of that, looks like he's a 40-year-old man.
Yep.
And they find that he's reverse aged, and all his, even just internally he's younger, all this stuff, and he's smarter.
Yeah, they do
and
a lot
sharper.
of tests on him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that concept is interesting, and I think like there's a lot of stuff you could play with in that. And then you also have the thread of like the flashbacks of him meeting this young lady when they were young, his true love, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, because of his career, she was like, we're going separate ways. And then she ends up finding somebody else, but them dying young. And so then later in this movie, he comes across the woman that is basically that lady.
Mm-hmm.
And then she has the similar thing happen to her. Instead, she starts aging
Yeah.
fast. And when he finds her, she's young, and she's like in her 20s. And then she starts aging. So that part's a little weird to me.
I agree.
I feel like it felt a little, again, convoluted, or the mess part.
I would say that's probably the low point of the movie.
The mess part, which is like the second half of the film.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and again, a 2-hour film, and it's like, so the first act is interesting, and then it's like, but then where it goes is not as interesting, and it gets all weird with her like going different languages, which allows him to fulfill his life's work, but just kind of a really strange and kind of just out there idea. And it's also kind of, I don't know, it's like, I always wanted to say, is this like his version of a superhero movie? Because you have this guy, because then there's that time where he has that like almost superpower where he turns the guy's gun on him with his mind.
Yeah,
which is super weird.
Yeah, I didn't understand that really.
But then it's also like saying, oh, yes, someone got bit by a spider and turned into Spider-Man, but then not too long after, someone else gets bit by a spider and turns into Spider-Man. It's like the coincidence of this happening at all is very far fetched, and then for it to happen twice, and just kind of, again, I know it's all like made up anyway, but so
I think it's a good point though. The superhero thing, that it does seem the closest out of all of his films, unless these next two movies, which I don't think they are,
I don't know,
similar to this at all. Yeah, I think that's seems to be some truth in that. It's just kind of his experimental attempt to somewhat get into that. Maybe.
But anyway, so like I said, the general premise of that happening to someone, I think there could be a lot done with that.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting. And like you said, I had the same thought. It reminded me of Jack, but in reverse in a way. And which that film was much better and much more interesting. Because I think they leaned into that stuff a lot more. And this was so much trying to be more about his work and this like cross lovers through time, whatever that they try to make it as about, which was not interesting at all. And was super. So I feel like it's like missed the mark on that, because the opportunity again would have been, and then of course setting in World War II was a weird, other than just like involving the Nazis.
Right.
But it's like, otherwise what's the point of it?
It wasn't necessary, but maybe he just wanted to. Well, we know Coppola likes his period pieces, so maybe he just wanted to get into that more anyway. So so you're pretty mixed on it, the movie as a whole.
I would definitely say below a 5 for me.
Really? Okay.
I would think the only thing, to be honest, the only thing redeeming in this film is the cinematography.
Oh yeah,
that's the only thing
that did keep me interested.
Kept me even watching it, because otherwise I would probably. And there was times even with that, I was like, I know I need to finish this for the podcast. I really don't want to watch this.
But if you didn't have to do a podcast on it,
I would definitely have turned it off after that kind of towards the end of that first act, when I started getting, and I was like, what? This is boring, and I would just turn it off.
Yeah,
walked out. I would have walked out of this if I was in a theater for sure.
Oh, okay.
Because there's no way I would have wasted that actual hour and a half after. By somewhere around the 30-minute mark, it probably would have been like, okay, this is getting old and slow and boring.
Yeah, it's I think I'm a little higher on it overall than you, but I agree when you were talking about like kind of that stuff more in the second half. That was definitely the low point for me, where I would definitely felt like that boredom, and I was like, okay, this is not really as interesting as the first half of the movie. Because a lot of the plot elements, like I said, like were really interesting to me, and it's a cool idea, and the way they set it all up I was into. But yeah, there's just some stuff towards the end that was kind of weird. I will say though, when we can get into notes also, but the very end I thought was interesting though. Like I liked that aspect of it. But yeah, that little bit. You know what? There actually is, at least with me, I don't know if you feel the same way. There's been a few of Coppola's movies recently that I think I felt similar about. It was like, I guess you could say more like in the third act, that just wasn't as good as the rest of the movie. I think I said that with Jack and maybe a few others, but then like start and end of the movie for a lot of these, I was like, yeah, this is good. But yeah, there's like seems to be a point in there towards the end that, at least for me, kind of was like a low point for a lot of his more recent films.
Yeah. I think I liked the third act of Jack better than you did.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I felt like it was necessary to be that way, but yeah, this film just didn't work for me in general. Like,
I think you're You put that would be like the best thing to do for even like you're looking at the poster of this movie coming out. What you said about it would be just perfect, pretentious mess. That's that's the log line for the film. That's yeah.
Yeah, and I think I feel like artsy films have to toe that line, right? Like it's very easy for him to suddenly become pretentious.
Yeah,
because especially because you're trying to do something out there and different, and sometimes it feels like there's a line between because you have something to say or do, and then or where you're just doing it just to do it.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it starts to become pretentious, when you're just like, well, I'm just going to make it weird just to make it weird.
Yes.
And that's kind of where I felt this film kind of hit a lot. It was like, it didn't feel like it was really saying anything, even though it wanted to be saying something bigger, and then it was just weird to be weird instead of.
I could feel it in some moments, but some moments I thought was done well. The more pretentious or artsy moments of the film. Yeah. So certain moments though, yeah, it seemed like it was like just to do it. Yeah. Be more weird or abstract, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, as far as notes, I wanted to first just mention, because I don't think we have yet. This is 10 years since his last film, so he's definitely, I guess, at a different point in his life, and this is what he wanted to make next. It does seem like, because I'm not familiar with the next two films as well, and even what I've seen just from a trailer of Megalopolis, it seems like all four of these final films he does is like very different tone-wise than what he has done. It seems way more experimental, like all of these from what I know of him so far, these final four. So that's kind of his last part of his career, filmmaking career. He wanted to be, I guess, go more into experimental. That's what it seems like to me anyway.
Yeah, I guess if you're set income-wise, you're not really trying to feel like you've peaked in your, I guess, trajectory.
Yeah.
And you're like, I have people know who I am. I've made my mark. Now I just want to do whatever the heck I want to do.
Mm-hmm. It does seem that way.
I mean, I can respect that, even if I don't like what he made. I can respect that.
And I don't know what he did in these 10 years, because I know he has written other films that he didn't direct. So maybe at least a few. I think he was involved in Patton, that film. I think he wrote that, or was partially wrote that, or co-writer. But yeah, so I don't know what else he did in these past 10 years. But
help his daughter get her career off the ground, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
As a director.
Yeah. Some of her biggest films, I think, were late 90s, early 2000s. So that would make sense.
Yeah. So maybe just producers on those and just kind of helping her out.
Yep.
Which also I can respect as a
For
parent. Sure. All right, what else you got? I don't have a lot of notes on.
I don't either. So I wanted to mention
other than the stuff I already talked about.
Yeah. At the beginning of the film, I was a little confused on where and when it was taking place. Now, as we get into it, then you get to see that a lot more. It lays it out a little bit more as we go. And what's interesting is that, so it starts in the late 1930s in Romania, near, start of World War II. Then we eventually go to Switzerland. And I was surprised that we cover so much time, because then we go beyond that. We see at one point, the newspapers and different headlines. And I don't think it says whenever the time or the time of year by the end of the movie, but I saw as at least up to like late 50s. So it was at least at that point. But so I don't know where we ended at, but yeah, just at the very beginning though is a little confusing. But I guess that was intentional because then as we go a little ways in, then we kind of know, oh, this is where we're at time period wise and location. And just to add to that with my next note, I do like how much this movie centers around language and how we interpret different languages. I thought that was a cool plot point in the movie. And like you mentioned, like his whole career in general, but like his pursuit or his what he wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
By the end of his career. Yeah. So I liked all that. And we get a lot of different languages. It did get a little confusing, like you mentioned towards the end. It's like she's speaking all these
yeah.
Or at least one unknown language. I don't know if she spoke multiple unknown languages. I don't really remember.
I don't remember if it's multiple. Yeah.
And then side point also just for the very beginning, I did really like the opening title sequence. Had like a really old Hollywood feel to it, like 1940s style title sequence. I really like that.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. I do want to say, like, I think Tim Roth did a great job.
Yeah, he was great.
And like,
he's great in anything I've seen him in.
Especially like having to try to portray an old man at first, especially as he was like, it was like as he was kind of healing, and it, like even just when he would walk, he kind of walk like he was an old man at first. And I was like, that's a nice touch. Like, I don't know where that came from, but he was pulling it off, where he just kind of looked like, even though he looked younger, he was walking like an old man. And
yeah, he had a lot.
But eventually, he started walking normal again. But it was like there for a little bit. They had him, and I thought that was good. And
it was. He had a lot to carry in this movie.
Yeah, because then he's playing, multiple versions of himself.
Yep.
Because which I guess they're just voices in his head. Like they don't really explain it, but like
no, they don't.
Those other guys are there.
I have a scene I'll mention that I thought was really cool though with that. But yeah, also I imagine most people that go to watch this movie also, and I mean people write in if you know any of the other actors in this movie, if you're familiar with him, but most people, he's also the main character, but you're mostly just focused on him because it's, there is other characters, but it's like, he's well known even by 2007. I mean, he's well known by the early 90s because of Pulp Fiction. I guess already he was at this point or around this time in the MCU also, because he was in the Hulk movie.
Yes.
So, yeah. So if you're going into this movie, you're mainly focusing on him anyway, because that naturally, at least I do. I don't know about everyone else. When you go to watch a movie, you tend to gravitate towards people you already are familiar with, actors that you're already familiar with or like in general.
Yes. Yeah, I think because and to your point, he really only other is the lady is because she kind of shows up in the second half, and then and she's like the only other what you consider like main character. Everyone else are just like side characters that are only normally there briefly.
Yes,
and then they kind of as the story progresses, they kind of are gone. So
at the beginning, I do want to point out when Dominic does get struck by lightning, that looked really bad. The effect of that,
yes.
That was bad.
Yes. Yeah.
But as a whole, I mean, there's not really, because even his age and everything else, like that all looked practical. It's like, I think, as far as I know, that lightning and like the lightning we see like a little bit later in the movie too. It's like, I don't think there's much visual effects in this film.
Yeah. I think the part where they take her to, was it India or something, and then she finds that cave, and
oh yeah,
so just seems so random, and
That was strange. Yeah.
yeah, and just the fact that it worked out, and you're like, what? There's nothing about this that makes sense.
Yeah. I did think it was funny. You see this more towards the beginning of the movie mostly, but it was funny seeing like how many times he gets hit on when he looks younger. And like even the nurses and
yeah.
and he doesn't really know how to respond to it because I mean he's used to being 70 and probably not happening as much then, but yeah, it was funny. There's a few interactions in the film that kind of did that thing, and those are some good moments.
Yeah.
And then this is one of the scenes I wanted to highlight that I thought was really good. Was I really love the scene where he has the late night encounter with the woman from room 6, which I looked at the credits. That's what she's credited as. So we don't ever get her name. And while they're in the middle of their sexual encounter, let's say, this is a really cool shot where you see like a small Nazi symbol sewn into her lingerie. And I thought that was a really cool effect to see him like first visualize that and be like, oh, she's involved with that. Yeah. So I thought that was a really cool scene. And when we get to cinematography, there's a lot, very cool framing and, just way this cinematographer shoots this movie. It's really interesting. Do you have anything else? I only have a couple.
The only other thing was just talk about the ending. And
okay. Well, that's good because some of the ending I didn't really understand, even though I liked it. So maybe you can explain that more to me. But I'll say before that, I liked this I was mentioning a little bit ago, is anytime Dominic was having a conversation with himself, basically, and you see a double of him. And I thought, to your point where you said like how well his performance is, Tim Roth in this, like I thought those moments especially, like he really shined in that because, I imagine for filming it, it's like you just have someone sitting there in place, right, as a double. Yes, and then normally you film it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you have to, I don't know. I thought he did really well with those scenes, especially.
Or a tennis ball, as they did in the first Villeneuve film we covered. I always forget the name of that film.
Oh,
but yeah, because
Enemy.
Because Jake Gyllenhaal had to play.
Yes, that's right.
And they would just use the tennis ball, so he knew where to look.
Man, and it was done so well in that too. I remember we talked about that.
He did great at that.
Because that's tough to do. Because the way that the shot of that scene, I remember us talking about it. Because it'd be really difficult to do it. Because I don't think it cuts either, and you see, it's really cool.
So they had to use visual effects. So they might have used some visual effects in this for those kind of stuff.
That's true.
I mean, the classic way was just, you make sure you don't break a plane, and you just like you don't move the camera, and you don't break a plane, and somewhere in the middle, and you film one, film the other, stack them, and crop it, and then it's like easy to put someone on one side and someone on the other side of the frame. Right. It doesn't take any real special effects, right? Yep. Especially in the digital age where you're editing and it's literally a click of a button.
Yeah, and so I imagine even by, let's say 2006, 2007.
Oh yeah,
would have been fine to do, not like very challenging.
That part, but like when you start moving the camera, and then you have to either use a robotic arm so that it does the movement exactly the same, or or you just use some kind of CGI the mask and composite someone else in.
Gotcha.
But I think most of these, from what I remember, nothing stood out where there was a lot of camera. Normally it was a fixed camera.
Yes.
So they probably kept it simple that way. And it's not about the coolness of the effect in this film at all. It's all about just the characters and having
just conversation with
himself. Conversation with himself. Yeah. But yeah, and there was, again, kind of branching into the cinematography, but there's definitely lots of times where they had cool framing
Yes.
of that and mirrors and
A lot of mirrors, yeah. So my only other note before we talk about the ending is, which we kind of mentioned up top, was not expecting to see Matt Damon, so that was cool. He's uncredited. Very short, cameo scene. You said he was a reporter. I thought he was American Spy or something. What was his character?
oh, the IMDb says he's a Life magazine reporter.
Oh, for some reason I thought he was a spy or something. I don't know. But
Like I said,
yeah, that was cool.
Like we mentioned already, I feel like there was stuff like that was kind of confusing to even follow. And you were like, who's this person? What? And then next thing you know, they were gone anyway. And then you're like,
very
what's
short
happening?
scene. Yeah.
Then it was like that, like it wasn't just the stuff with Matt Damon. Like it was like that multiple times.
Yes.
So
yeah, what's about the ending? What would you want to talk about with that?
well, just like what you thought of the ending. And I mean,
So I didn't understand it fully, but I still liked it. I was trying to figure out, I'm like, I guess is the point that he stayed in, I think it's 1938, the whole time? Because they talk, and then eventually you see that one of that final scene where you see him change to like very old, and then before he goes outside, and then he's laying there dying, and then the rose shows up. That's kind of the very final moment. But when he was talking to I don't remember the guy. He was from the beginning of the movie too.
the doctor. Yeah.
The doctor, yes, that's right. I was trying to figure out, I'm like, so he didn't move ahead into these other decades? And like, was that in his head? I don't know. Like, that is what I didn't understand. So yeah, I don't know. Did you understand any of that?
No.
Okay.
Well, and I mean, that's where I was like, again, comes in the pretentiousness to me.
Oh, definitely like the rose that shows up.
Like, cause it's like, okay, I mean, it's okay to have something open-ended with not a definitive answer.
I like a lot of movies that end that way, that are up to, your own
Inception's
interpretation.
a good example, right?
Oh yeah, that's a great example.
But that only works if you are connecting the dots in a story throughout the film. And so then so you're completely understanding what's going down.
Yeah, it can't just be out of nowhere at the end.
And then
it has no
and then you
context.
presented this ending and you're like, oh, and then it flips some of those thoughts that you were connecting, and you're like, oh wait, maybe it meant something else. This story, and like that works, but like this was to me, it was just like more of a, again, where you kind of go into the mess stuff too, like where it's like, almost like as a cheat, as a writer, I don't really know, so I'm just gonna make this randomness happen and then
make it very convoluted.
Yeah. And then that way you think I'm smart and like
it's an artsy, pretentious ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, so
I didn't look anything up. I'll have to Google it and see what people think about the ending, what their interpretation is, or if Coppola has talked about it at all. But
maybe we'll get something in trivia.
Maybe.
But yeah, I never look up stuff when we do these, because I don't want it to color my opinion.
Yeah, especially like, which we're going to go into next, like even, themes and messaging about a movie. I don't like looking that up ahead of time, because I try to think what, me personally in this moment watching a film, what I think, the bigger message is. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm going to have to after this and see, because I'm curious. What was the point of that ending?
Yeah. All right. So we want to talk about cinematography?
Themes and messages.
Oh, we do that before cinematography?
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Do we?
Yeah, we always do cinematography next, then music, then we do themes and messages, then we do trivia.
That's right. It's right before trivia. Yeah. Sorry. Cinematography.
It's like, hold on.
I know. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, cinematography next. I'm curious about these final 4 films. Just seeing the cinematography because it's the same person. So, and it kind of seems like we're gonna get a few more, maybe pretentious artsy movies.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll like some of them.
Yeah, maybe.
Just realizing, yeah. So first note about cinematography I've got is I think there's a lot of slow camera movements. It's nothing abrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of almost like has a floating feel a lot of times, which I think is kind of give it this kind of dreamlike
Oh yeah.
like feel. And then, like I said, use a lot of mirrors and reflections,
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
which also helps like show the duality of his fractured consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Did you like the upside down shots? Or what's the technical word for that? What we usually call that in the film world?
I don't know if there's a different term.
Okay.
I would call it what you just did, upside down shot.
Yeah. Okay. I thought there'd be some like technical.
There might be that I'm just not aware.
Okay. Because they did that a few times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that was cool. I mean,
Yeah, I liked it.
there's moments, yeah, that I like those.
Some
Yeah.
camera movements too, I would say. Just really interesting framing and the choice of like how to move the camera in certain scenes. I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely some like even angled shots, right?
Yes.
And stuff. But a lot of times that was in correlation with like the fractured consciousness, right? Like they would be
Yep.
the shot that's kind of angled. You would see like a mirror, like one of them talking to the other of his people in his head, I guess, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's good and, done well and
Yeah.
a good way to portray that.
I think, yeah, any scene with those kind of things incorporated definitely elevated it. And like you said, whereas that's what kept you interested in certain scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say even the scene I pointed out where he's with the girl from room 6,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of really interesting
Mm-hmm.
camera stuff in that scene, which
Yeah.
I think made it higher for me also. It was really interesting.
Yeah. Notice they used a lot of long takes.
Yeah.
And
In general, there's not a whole lot of cutting.
right, like
In the
each
whole
scene,
film.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
lot of the scenes would like, and I don't know if that was intentional to kind of almost like you're there with him in his conscious, and like kind of
Yes. Yeah. I think that also lends to if you want to make a more artsy, pretentious film, you got to do that kind of thing.
Mm,
Like when I
Less
think
cutting.
of artsy, pretentious, I don't think of a movie that has a million cuts in it,
true,
you know?
true.
Speaking of Matt Damon, what we just talked about, the Bourne movies, it's like the complete opposite.
Yeah, those are like, how many cuts can we put in?
Yeah. What's the Guinness World Record for cuts in a film? That'd be interesting to find out.
I'm sure there is one, I guess, or yeah, I mean, it could be a longer film, obviously the length of yeah,
Sure, yeah.
but yeah.
But that's really it I have
Mhm.
for cinematography. So I guess the word, because I know you use this word a lot, and I'm trying to use it more now that I understand what you mean, not just by saying framing, but composition, right? Yeah,
yep.
like that. There was a lot of interesting compositions
Yeah, that was
in this film.
yeah, 100%. Some times where something obvious is almost like fully cutting the middle of the frame, and there's like people in both. Like they did a lot of interesting compositions in this as well.
So that's a good highlight, at least to if these final 4 films, If they're not that great, I don't know, but at least they should be pretty beautiful, at least to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if this guy keeps up this kind of work, then yeah.
I mean, I imagine, well, what else do you say he did? I guess, especially The Master and Jojo Rabbit, I guess, yeah, they're some way similar, because I'm wondering if this is just his style anyway.
Yeah, I had never seen either of those films, but I knew they were like the more well-known ones, so I have
not seen Jojo Rabbit. The Master is awesome, though, because that's Paul Thomas Anderson, which is one of the top directors, in my opinion, which he's also on our list. We got to do it at some point.
Yeah.
There Will Be Blood. That's the number one movie of his for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of about it. I had notes for this too. So how about the score? Moving on.
I want to hear your thoughts first, if you have any, about the score.
I do not.
You don't? Okay. So Osvaldo...
There was a score though,
Golajov?
Like, yeah.
It didn't stand out to you at all?
Nothing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Like I said, I could have been distracted by the boringness of the film.
Sure, yeah. Good point, yeah. I'm interested to see what he does in these final 3 films after this too, with the music, because I really like the score in this. And what I liked about it was unique. That's what I was wondering if anything stood out to you, because it was definitely a unique score and pretty experimental at times too.
Okay.
Which I always love. I've mentioned to you many times, I like when people blend genres in scores. I think that's done a lot more now in general, but I always like when a composer does that. And this, even from the very beginning, it definitely had a experimental feel to it, kind of, I would say genre-wise, almost like world music at times too, which I thought was cool.
Okay.
And yeah, just very genre blending. So yeah, it stood out to me because kind of like the complete opposite of our last film, which didn't seem to support what was on screen, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this was like done to where like it still supported it very well, but also was really abstract as well, which is hard to do, like, and make it still fit. So yeah, I liked it a lot.
Cool. All right. So then themes and messages. Now you can share your thoughts on this.
I don't really have
jump the gun there.
I know. Yeah. I had a brain fart. I forgot. You are right. It is right before our final segment, trivia. I don't really have much for this. Really just life is short and fleeting, I would say, and be present in the moment. And also just the theme of like the passage of time in general. That's what I would say with this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with those. Are definitely elements in there.
Yeah.
Also kind of like I said, it's not my favorite part, but what they're trying to say, I think, with the it's like there's this person that's kind of like whatever, like your person, because there's like he met her, they were like together, they were like meant to be together kind of thing, but then it's like career wise didn't make sense, but then he still kind of meets her again.
Yes.
And the kind of similar to what they did in Dracula, right? Like it was kind of like, it's like the person was there again for them to, it's kind of like the reincarnation of them or whatever, but obviously done differently here. But just to be like, no matter where you are or no matter what, like this person
always like come back to you,
kind of come back to you kind of thing is kind of a cool idea. I don't know if it's true, but it's kind of
seen to be in this film though. Yeah.
Well, like, in the film, I mean, like in life in general.
In general, yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was like kind of something they were trying to say in there.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah.
But definitely enjoy the moment. Oh yeah, what I was gonna say with that is, and like is your life's work more important than that person? Which is kind of why he missed her in the first place, right? And then he gets to meet her again later, and she kind of helps him with it, but then he still loses her because she gets old.
Like,
so
what should you, in different points in your life, what should you prioritize more? Yeah.
So cool. All right, let's look at the trivia.
Very interested in trivia for this. I don't know if there is much. It does seem kind of like a more obscure film, so.
First thing on here, the modestly budgeted film was financed by the director's successful vineyard.
All in Coppola wine. Nice.
Yes.
Fully funded. I think I already asked you this, but have you tried his wine?
I probably have had at some point. I did buy some, like one of the times, like when we started this, keep the intention of opening one and drinking it and having the bottle.
We should
and
do that with Megalopolis, the final one.
Okay.
Do a little,
just remind me.
Little wine sipping. Okay.
But but I probably have had it before because it's,
it seems to be pretty popular.
Yeah. The language that are spoken in this film: English, French, Italian, Mandarin, German, Russian, Latin, Armenian, Sanskrit, Egyptian, not Arabic, Babylonian, and a little Romanian.
Wow.
Ancient Sanskrit, Egyptian, and Babylonian are authentic. Research in ancient texts and manuscripts by a team of expert linguistics. The film also included an artificial made-up language done with such integrity that it could provide the rudimentary basis of a new language.
Okay. I do want to reiterate, that is very impressive. 5 million. That is awesome that he did this movie on 5 million.
Well, so here's shot with 2 of Coppola's own Sony HDW F900 Cine Alta HD cameras.
Okay. Are you familiar with that camera? No. Okay.
And then they fully mastered it in 422, which is
that normal?
Yeah. Kind of low color. I mean, it's 10-bit.
Okay.
Which is, because 8-bit's 421. So it's like better than, but it's still not like the color space that we do stuff now. But then they filmed a total of 162 hours of footage.
What?
Yes.
162 hours
of footage. The thing got edited.
Of what?
Who knows?
That's crazy. And still kept it at 5 million. Man,
well, again, if you're just doing it yourself, like
sure, but like also, so I mean, Coppola does this a lot. He films stuff forever and then has to cut it down,
Yeah, but again, what they're not factoring in, obviously, and I'm just gonna throw this in there. My guess is what's not factored in there is his time, because just to shoot 162 hours of film or footage, I mean, they shot it digitally because those are digital cameras; they weren't film. They, that would be, I mean, that's how many divided by, I mean, how many days is that? Anyway,
I don't know.
I could do that math real quick, but it's,
I imagine also it's
only 20 days straight,
20 days,
but I'm sure they weren't filming straight. So,
no. But I imagine a lot of it is just scenery. I mean, like I mentioned, there's a decent amount of locations in this film. But that's got to be expensive too. I mean, there's not a big crew or cast, but like I imagine they had to go a lot of different places to film. That can't be cheap.
So if you're not filming straight all day, you probably, I don't know how much you actually get a day, but I don't know.
Well, that also might factor into, I'd be curious to see when he started production on this film. Like, how long did it take?
The editor, Walter Murch, started working immediately after completing his previous film, Jarhead, which we covered.
Yes, we did. That was 2005.
He spent 6 weeks just watching the 162 hours of footage.
Man.
The first assembly came in at 3 hours and 30 minutes. Then they brought it down to just under 3 hours.
Good choice to bring it down to 2, for sure.
Yeah, using Final Cut Pro.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very familiar with that,
Yeah.
especially now editing the podcast.
Yeah, there's not a lot in here. I mean, it's more about that stuff than anything else.
Okay.
Like the technical stuff like that.
In 2006, 2007, though,
Mm-hmm.
how good was Final Cut? I mean, I know you were using it even back then, right?
I was using it, yeah.
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 Was it still like the best as far as like any alternatives?
Yeah, then it was definitely
Definitely
the best option.
I know a lot of people use like Premiere and other stuff now.
Yeah,
DaVinci, that's
DaVinci's
right.
probably the best option now if you're on a budget. I mean all the, I wouldn't say all, but like a lot of the like large budget films, they still use Avid,
Really?
which is what they were using back then as well. Like Avid is the original like digital editing.
And a lot of like in Hollywood now, even they still.
Mhm. They still use it in a lot of films.
I thought it'd be a lot of Final Cut.
No, they use Final Cut, but Final Cut is less in the film industry. And then they use Premiere and DaVinci.
One thing I do like is because I didn't, even when I first started using Logic for composing, not many people used it, but I like how every year, all the way up to even now, I see more people in a lot of different industries using it, and it's cool. So even actual film composers, there is a ton that use Logic now, which is really cool. So I'm glad it's gaining popularity. It's definitely the easiest to use compared to any of the other DAWs I've used.
Cool. Well, any last thoughts on this one?
No, I mean, I just say to the audience listening or watching, I would say check out this movie anyway.
I would say not. Don't waste your 2 hours.
It's very unique. Say that.
Yeah, it is. But
Or
go watch Jack again.
there you go. Yeah.
or maybe Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button is great. Very long though.
It is long, but
It's like 3.5 hours. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
but
Yeah,
reverse
well,
aging on that, right?
Yes.
So
Some of the best VFX. I don't know if it won, but I remember that being groundbreaking when it came out.
at the time. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But
So our next movie,
oh yeah,
Tetro.
Look it up. Tetro. Yeah.
Tetro. Not heard of this one either.
Me either.
But let us know your thoughts on Youth Without Youth or Tetro if you want to write in
Yes.
ahead of time. We'll be covering that next. But please write in by emailing us at feedback at screentimepod.com or leave a comment. You can like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And you can follow each of us on our personal Instagrams. I'm at Jay Youngbar.
And I'm at Jared Youngbar.
All right. Catch you guys next time.